Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. This video is the Christmas gift I promised you, and today we're going to go over the top 3 weapons for each category of weapons in Battlefield 2042 and also the best setup for those weapons. 1 year ago this day I did a similar video and you guys really liked it, but since then a lot has changed with the weapons and with the game. We've got some new weapons and all that, and I was like, let's do an updated version for 2025, and here we are. Before we start, keep in mind that weapons in this list have proved themselves to me and me only. So this is based on my own experience. If you think otherwise, make sure to comment down below your favorite weapons so I can get a little perspective of how you feel and what you prefer. With that said, let's get things started. So starting off with SMGs, and don't worry, we'll get back to secondary weapons. At number 3, we've got the PBX-45. Now, the PBX with the right ammo will give you the second best TTK among all the SMGs, and believe it or not, regardless of being the first SMG you get to play with, it's one of the best weapons in the whole game. There is also something very interesting with this weapon, and that's the fact that for a high rate of fire weapon like this, the recoil control is a piece of cake. You pretty much don't even need to try. So yeah, PBX definitely deserves this spot, and I have no doubt about that in my mind. Now for the attachments, here's what you're going to do. You're going to get yourself a champion muzzle brake to be able to lower that vertical recoil. Then for underbarrel, I prefer the LWG grip. Now here's where things get interesting. The close combat ammo got buffed a few months ago, and now it provides faster TTK compared to the standard issue. So because of that, we're going to go with close combat first, then standard extended, and then standard issue rounds. That's the trick. And finally, I only use a red dot on my SMGs, any SMG basically, and there goes the setup. At number 2, we've got the K30. Now, a lot of people actually compare this with the AC9, and I get it. Like, I see where those people are coming from, but once you play with both weapons, the first thing that instantly hits you in the face is that AC9 has 10 less rounds per mag, and to be honest, you find yourself always reloading. Now, on the flip side, you have the K30 with a drum mag that holds 50 rounds, 1200 RPM, a fire rate, and it's literally a bust off a weapon. It shreds people, really. So I see no reason to play the AC9 anymore, regardless of its insane TTK. That's the mindset behind preferring the K30. I know a lot of you might get mad at me for this, but the K30 just works way better for me. Now for the setup, again, champion muzzle brake. I don't really like to use suppressors on my weapons that much, especially not on SMGs, since the light ones only work in above 30 meters, which isn't what we need for an SMG, unless you decide to go for a heavy suppressor, which is just worse. For underbarrel, LMG grip should be fine. I don't really like to use lasers unless it's absolutely necessary, because if you go up against someone who knows what they're doing, they'll be making your day hard, to be honest. For ammo, standard drum, then standard extended, and then high power extended should be your go-to options. And now all you need is a red dot, and there goes your setup for the K30. And finally, at number 1, I think you had it coming, the PP29. Now, there is something very special about this weapon, and it's the magazine options that you have. Basically, this weapon is an assault rifle with the firepower of an LMG, and for some reason, it's categorized as an SMG. Plus 60 rounds per mag, and on top of that, a ridiculous damage model makes this thing the ridiculous meta, and I've never seen anyone claiming that there is a better SMG than the PP29. For the setup, I'd go with the Arkham Tactical Muzzle Brake, simply because the PP29 suffers from some horizontal recoil, and we don't want that. Then you have no options for underbarrel, and for ammo, you gotta go for standard issue, then high power, and then subsonic, and now you just need a red dot. So here's the setup. Moving on to assault rifles, and at number 3, we've got the M5A3. The M5 is the first assault rifle in the game. That means you don't even need to unlock it. It's there from the beginning. However, this thing is better than most of the assault rifles that people tend to play. It's really a versatile weapon as well, with tons of attachments that will give you the edge in almost any situation. Now for the setup, I'd go with the shortened barrel simply because it increases the fire rate, and the recoil on this thing is quite easy to control, so it's a win-win deal. Underbarrel is where things get interesting. I'd go for an LWG grip first. Then we've got the Master Key, which is an underbarrel shotgun, and it's a super strong weapon in close range. Then we've also got the high explosive grenade launcher, which is just some extra explosive firepower, and that's about the underbarrel. For ammo, go for the standard extended, then standard issue, and then close combat. And for sights, I'd go for a red dot and a ghost hybrid for those medium range gunfights, and the setup is ready to roll. At number 2, we've got the VHX D3. The VHX was added to the game in Season 6, and my god, people were complaining about how overpowered this thing is 24/7 for a straight month. I never thought it was that OP, to be honest, despite being a strong one. The only thing about this weapon that really holds it back is the sidekick it has. Some attachments might help with that, but only to a degree. Speaking of attachments, Arkham Tactical Muzzle Brake should save you some headache with that sidekick. Then go for the LWG grip, and then the high explosive grenade, and finally the smoke under barrel grenade. These are the options you can have, and I'm trying to get the maximum firepower possible out of them. For ammo, you're going to go with the standard extended, then standard issue, and then high power. And for weapon sights, a red dot and a ghost hybrid should do the trick. And at number 1, we've got the almighty RM68. This weapon is always in competition with the Scar for the Meta AR title, and this time I really want to give it to the RM68 because of how reliable this thing is, both in close and in long range. To this day, I still get some kills with this thing that freak the chips out of me, man. Some of these kills are hard to get even with a DMR, and this thing never disappoints. So enough with the compliments, and let's get to the fun part. For the setup, you're going to go with the shortened barrel to get some more fire rate, and you also have a default suppressor on the weapon, which is considered a light one, and it's never going to hurt. For underbarrel, LMG grip as usual, then the high explosive grenade should give you some more firepower. For ammo, standard extended, then high power, and then standard issue should be in the slots. And lastly, a red dot and an M22 3.5 times should do the trick for this one. And here's the setup. Moving on to LMGs, and at number 3, we've got the RPT-31. With the red attachments, this thing can be a superpower, and honestly, there are 2 major downsides with this weapon. First one is recoil, which can be tricky sometimes, and the second one is the fire rate. Generally speaking, you can't fix them both at the same time, and I just can't stand the fire rate, which is 600 RPM. It's really low for me, to be honest. So I'm just going to go with shortened barrel, gain 90 RPM, and that's going to make things smoother, especially in close range. For underbarrel, you got to stick to the LWG grip and then have a bipod in the second slot, because as someone who plays an LMG, you always need to be able to lay down some suppressive fire and go for long range targets as well. For ammo, go for high power extended, then standard extended, and then high power. And for sights, just go for a red dot of choice and then the target 8T for medium range, and you should be good to go. Number 2, we've got the PKP BP. Now, this thing has a unique design in 2042. It has a grip and a bipod at the same time, and this actually helps a lot in many situations. You don't need to switch between them all the time. You can lay accurate shots down range really faster. And the funny thing is, the PKP provides a high rate of fire even with the high power ammunition. So generally speaking, it's a matter of power and speed. And on top of all that, the recoil is also easy to control, which is all the more reason for this gun to be fitted in this list. For the setup, a champion muzzle brake should do the trick. No choices for underbarrel, but for ammo, go for high power extended first, then standard issue, and then high power. For sights, the red dot and ghost hybrid combination should suffice here, and here's how the setup should look like. And finally, at number 1, we've got the DFR Strife. Now, this weapon was added to the game in the middle of Season 7, and honestly, it's safe to say that people never complained about how strong this weapon is because of how good it was balanced. The damage and recoil are great, but the ammo capacity holds it back from becoming overpowered, and generally speaking, the DFR gives you assault rifle mobility with LMG firepower, and that's something that no other LMG can provide, not even the RPK. For the setup, go for a champion muzzle brake and then the Type 4 heavy suppressor. The reason for that lies in the subsonic ammo, and if you combine them, you're going to go completely off the radar and you won't be seen on the minimap. For underbarrel, LMG grip first, then a bipod, and then the armor-piercing grenade launcher, which enables you to go against enemy vehicles as well. For ammo, go for standard issue belt fed, then subsonic belt fed to match that suppressor, and then high power belt fed. And lastly, for weapon sights, a red dot and a ghost hybrid should do the trick, and here's the setup. Alright, so let's move on to the DMRs, and at number 3, we've got the M1 Garand. Now, M1 has recently been added to the game from the Vault weapons, and it just straight up became my favorite weapon. Now, there are aspects of this weapon that really hold it back, like the ammo capacity, for example, but in under 30 meters, this thing can kill enemies with 1 bullet to the head, which is literally impossible for any DMR to do a one-shot kill. But that's not all. In under 75 meters, it is a 2-shot kill, and that's just too much power for a World War II weapon. And because of that, it just has to have a place in this list, and I believe it's the best Vault DMR out there. For the attachments, however, there is nothing you can choose except your weapon sights. So what I do is that I normally use the 2x medium range scope, and for longer ranges, I just switch to the 6x long range scope, and that's about it for the setup. At number 2, we've got the BSV-M, and this is a DMR that some people prefer to use like an assault rifle. That's literally how it is, but I'm gonna try to put both playstyles into one setup and see how that works. The weapon is actually really capable, and it's literally better than some SMGs in close range, while leaving the long range effectiveness untouched. So here's what you're going to do with the setup. You're going to need both shortened suppressor and extended suppressor. Then for underbarrel, you got to go with the LWG grip and then a bipod. For ammo, close combat first, then subsonic close combat, and then high power extended. High power and extended suppressor will turn the weapon into a DMR, so keep that in mind. And lastly, I used 3 scopes for this weapon: K8 Hollow for close range, Ghost Hybrid for medium range, and then the 2038 thermal for long range. So here's the setup. At number 1, we've got the King DMR, the SVK. For some reason, DICE refuses to address an old issue with this weapon, and that makes me want to use the glitch every time I want to play this weapon. Simply said, extended and shortened barrel change nothing but the fire rate and muzzle velocity, and on this weapon, only and only for standard issue rounds, the rate of fire for extended and shortened barrel is exactly the same. Meaning there is no reason not to use the extended barrel because you'll still get the velocity advantage. As long as DICE doesn't want to fix this glitch, you're free to use it. The weapon itself is just a killing machine and it's low-key the best DMR for medium to long range. For the setup, go for extended barrel, LWG grip, and a bipod. Also, you're going to need the armor-piercing grenade launcher. It just hits those tanks different. For ammo, standard extended, standard issue, and then high power should do the trick. And for weapon sights, I always run a Ghost Hybrid, then the 2038 thermal, and then the STB-10X for long-range shooting, and there goes the setup. Moving on to the sniper rifles, and at number 3 we've got the XCE bar. For sniper rifles, there is nothing more important than muzzle velocity because it makes you want to compensate less for bullet drop. Super important, so I'll be focusing on that aspect for my setups. The XCE is in this list solely because how fast the bolt cycle is, and that can be translated into high fire rate, if that makes sense. It is so fast, and going against someone playing this weapon in mid-range is just a nightmare. Now for the setup, go for the tactical compensator for some more accuracy, then BCG light grip and a bipod, which is a must for any sniper rifle. Sometimes you might need to use one. Then for ammo, as I said, I always go for high power first, then standard extended, and then standard issue. And lastly, for weapon sights, I like the BKS 8X and a long shot 12X, and that's it. At number 2, we've got the 50 caliber NTW50, which is just a monster anti-material sniper rifle. Not only you can kill people in under 100 meters with a single bullet, but you can also deal a hell of a lot of damage to enemy vehicles, especially to vehicles like Ram or Brawler, and also air vehicles. It's really OP. They tried to compensate for that by significantly reducing the muzzle velocity, but in close to medium range, that literally means nothing. It doesn't play a role when you kill people with a single shot. Anyways, for the setup, no choices there for muzzle and underbarrel, but for ammo, keep in mind that you should always use the anti-material ammo before the anti-material high power if you want those one-shot kills. I always go for the Raven 4X and the 2038 thermal, and there goes the setup. Finally, at number 1, we've got the most versatile sniper rifle in the game, the SWS-10. This weapon is a mixture of long-range and close-range weapons in the game with a little bit of bias towards long range, and I'll be trying to increase that bias just a bit by messing around with the setup. Now, speaking of the setup, let me tell you why this weapon is so versatile. First of all, you go with the extended barrel to get some more muzzle velocity, then the BCG light grip. Now, there's the master key, and it's really a lifesaver when it comes to close range encounters for a sniper, so definitely make sure to use that in the second slot, and for the third slot, a bipod should be enough. For ammo, again, we go for the high power for more velocity, then standard extended, and then standard issue. Lastly, for scopes, the BKS 8X and the Longshot 12X should do the trick, and here's how the setup should look like. Alright, so let's move on to tactical weapons. Number 3 is the MCS 880, which is one of the 4 shotguns in the game. This one is really strong, to be honest, and the only issue with this weapon is the competition it has, which is a full auto shotgun, literally. Sometimes this weapon will really shock you, showing you how capable it is even in range. Taking a look at the setup, factory barrel and LS1 laser sight should do the trick. For ammo, 0-1 buckshot first, then number 4 buckshot, and finally 2-0 buckshot is the combination you need. And lastly, just go for a simple red dot sight and you should be okay. Number 2 is the 12M auto, and as the name says it all, it's a 12 gauge automatic shotgun with 20 shells per mag, and it's a chainsaw, honestly. You never know how you die when someone jumps in front of you using this thing. It's just ridiculous. For the setup, you need the shortened barrel, then DMGL laser sight for some more hipfire accuracy, since you're going to need it. For ammo, go for the drum mag first, then buckshot extended, and then buckshot. Simply put a red dot sight on the weapon, and it's ready to go. And finally, at number 1, we've got the Rarsk MK4, which is a really capable weapon both as an assault rifle and as a sniper rifle. You literally have 0 bullet drop when using this thing as a sniper rifle, and that really makes it stand out as the imaginary weapon in the game. It's actually a railgun, for those of you who didn't know. For the setup, your underbarrel options should be the stream capacitor and the high power capacitor. For scopes, I like to have a UH1 Smart for close range and a 2038 thermal for long range. And so here's the setup. And finally, we're back at the secondary weapons, and starting off with number 3, the NVK P125, which is just an imaginary weapon, but my god, it's a great companion. The fire rate and damage on this thing make you want to use it all the time. It's really great. But for the setup, Go for Warhawk Compensator, the LS1 laser sight for more hipfire accuracy. Use all ammo options you've got, and then just a red dot would do the trick for this weapon, and here's the setup. At number 2, we've got the G57, a secondary weapon with burst fire, which makes it really stand out, and will definitely help you a lot in almost any given situation. Saved my life many times, this little boy. For the setup, factory barrel and LS1 laser sight should be alright. Then for ammo, close combat drum, then extended, and then normal close combat should be your options, and just a red dot sight is enough for this thing. So here's the setup. And finally, at number 1, we've got the almighty BFP-50 or the infamous Desert Eagle. There is nothing I need to say. It's a fast-firing cannon with tons of damage, and that's it. For the setup, factory barrel, LS1 laser sight, high power, then close combat, and all you need now is a red dot sight, and you should be ready to go. And there you have it, guys, the Christmas video I promised you. Hope you guys enjoyed and hope it was helpful. I really hope you're having a great holiday and everything is going perfectly for you. And before I forget, do make sure to go down in the comment section and let me know what your choices are. I'd like to know what you guys think, actually, and I want to know what weapon preferences you have. So do make sure to do that, and thanks for watching. Until next time, guys, stay cool.